Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Sodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Sodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajacharya Asarasata Sri Srimada's Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaur Premananda. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. Glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 24, The Renunciation of Kardama Muni, Text 42. Vratam sa āsthito maunam ātmaika-śaraṇo muniḥ niḥsaṅgo vyacarat kṣoṇīm anagnir Aniketanaḥ, vratam sa āsthito maunam, ātmaika-śaraṇo muniḥ, niḥsaṅgo vyacarat kṣoṇīm, anagnir Aniketanaḥ, vratam sa āsthito maunam, ātmaika-śaraṇo muniḥ, niḥsaṅgo vyacarat kṣoṇīm, anagnir Aniketanaḥ, vratam sa āsthito maunam, ātmaika-śaraṇo muniḥ, niḥsaṅgo vyacarat kṣoṇīm, Aniketanaḥ, maunam, ātmaika-śaraṇo muniḥ, niḥsaṅgo vyacarat kṣoṇīm, anagnir Aniketanaḥ, vratam sa āsthito maunam, ātmaika-śaraṇo muniḥ, niḥsaṅgo vyacarat kṣoṇīm, Aniketanaḥ, vratam sa āsthito maunam, ātmaika-śaraṇo muniḥ, niḥsaṅgo vyacarat kṣoṇīm, anagnir Aniketanaḥ. Vaishnavis. Vratam sa maunam, vratam, vow, saha, he, Kardama, āsthitaḥ, accepted, maunam, silence, ātma, by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, eka, exclusively, śaraṇaḥ, being sheltered, muniḥ, the sage, niḥsaṅgaḥ, without association, vyacarat, he traveled, kṣoṇīm, the earth, anagnir, without fire, Aniketanaḥ, without shelter. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. The sage Kardama accepted silence as a vow in order to think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and take shelter of Him exclusively. Without association, he traveled over the surface of the globe as a sannyāsī, devoid of any relationship with fire or shelter. Purport. Here the words Niragnir Aniketanaḥ are very significant. A sannyāsī should be completely detached from fire and any residential quarters. A gṛhastha has a relationship with fire, either for offering sacrifices or for cooking. But a sannyāsī is freed from these two responsibilities. He does not have to cook or offer fire for sacrifice because he is always engaged in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Therefore, he has already accomplished all ritualistic performances of religion. Aniketanaḥ means without lodging. He should not have his own house, but should depend completely on the Supreme Lord for his food and lodging. He should travel. Maunam means silence. Unless one becomes silent, he cannot think completely about the pastimes and activities of the Lord. It is not that because one is a fool and cannot speak nicely, he therefore takes the vow of silence. Rather, one becomes silent so that people will not disturb him. It is said by Chanakya Pandit that a rascal appears very intelligent as long as he does not speak. But speaking is the test. The so-called silence of a silent impersonalist, Swami, indicates that he has nothing to say. He always wants to beg, but the silence adopted by Kardama Muni was not like that. He became silent for relief from nonsensical talk. One is called a muniḥ. What is that? Yeah, but it's written here, muniḥ. Oh. Yeah. When he remains grave and does not talk nonsense. Maharaj Ambarish set a very good example. Whenever he spoke about the pastimes of the Lord. Mauna necessitates refraining from nonsensical talking and engaging the talking facility in the pastimes of the Lord. In that way, one can chant and hear about the Lord in order to perfect his life. Vratam means that one should take a vow, as explained in Bhagavad Gita. Amanikvam adambitvam, without hankering for personal respect and without being proud of one's material position. Ahimsa means not being violent. There are 18 processes for attaining knowledge and perfection, and by his vow, Kardama Muni adopted the principles of self-realization. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So the verse says, the sage Kardama accepted silence as a vow. So in the Bhagavad Gita, in the 10th chapter, Krishna says, maunam chaivasmi guhyanam. Of secret things, I am silence. And Srila Prabhupada adds in his purport, in terms of the confidential activities of hearing, thinking, and meditating, silence is very important, because when one is silent in those circumstances, one makes progress very rapidly. So I was thinking about that, that hearing is a confidential activity. And it is, because nobody knows what anyone is really hearing or understanding by what they're hearing. Like when Lord Chaitanya went to Jagannath Puri and kind of went into ecstasy, went into trance in the Jagannath Puri temple, and was kind of taken to the home of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, who was the head teacher of the sannyāsīs in that area. Gradually he recovered his outer consciousness, his external awareness. And he was, Lord Chaitanya was a very young sannyāsī, so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya thought he could use some instruction that would help him in his ashram. So Lord Chaitanya agreed to hear about Vedanta from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and he listened for several days. He was hearing, but he was silent. So Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya couldn't understand. Has he learned anything? He doesn't have any questions. It's just like at the end of a class, you give a very long class, very well prepared, very full of nice shlokas and logic and everything, and somebody's listening, and then say, any questions or comments? Silence. So Lord Chaitanya was like that. And so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, because he was being silent like that, and confidentially having his own opinion, he wanted to know what it was. And Lord Chaitanya told him why he was being silent. He said, well, when you were talking directly, when you were directly giving the statements of Vedanta Sutra, I understood you very nicely. But when you started giving your interpretations, that's when I kind of stopped following what you were saying. So, but anyways, the point is that if someone's silent, that in terms of what they're hearing, it's difficult to, it's confidential. They know what they're thinking. I know what I'm thinking if I'm being silent. So another factor there is that if you're not silent, in other words, if you're hearing other things or making other noises while you should be hearing, then the mind gets distracted and you don't really get the benefit of hearing transcendental sound vibration. So another confidential activity is thinking. We have our thoughts, that's confidential. And there's also the factor of Kṛṣṇa being within the heart of each living entity as supersoul. sarvasya chaham hridisanavisto matasmitir jnanam apohanam sha. I'm situated in everyone's heart as the Supersoul, and from me come memory, knowledge, and forgetfulness. So silence can allow one to have one's thinking influenced by knowledge and inspiration coming from the Supersoul. So a lot of times artists and writers and other people, in order to think properly, think in line with what they are trying to accomplish, they have to maintain some kind of silence, internal and externally. You know, that's, somebody may be thinking very deeply, and then somebody interrupts them, and then their train of thought gets disrupted. So, and then meditating is the third thing that Srila Prabhupada mentioned as a confidential activity in which silence is important. All kinds of distractions that create what's called noise, in electronics and dealing with digital equipment, that receives signals. You want to get rid of the noise. Sometimes it's called, the extraneous signals that interfere with the proper signal, the transmission of it. So in these ways, silence is important. I thought it was interesting how Kṛṣṇa says in that 10th chapter of the Gita that among secret things, silence is very important. So, like different countries have different intelligence agencies and things like that. And they try to keep it very silent, so that their secrets aren't exposed to other countries, or among politicians or business people. They have their trade secrets. They try to maintain silence about certain things. Like my father was an intelligence officer in the military, and he was quiet he didn't talk to the family members about what he was doing in his work. So it's interesting. I was always interested in these things that people have to be silent about, want to know what the truth is. So it's kind of interesting to join the Hare Krishna movement and be living the philosophy of the Bhagavad Gita, the teachings of Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita. And his teachings he calls the most confidential knowledge, secret of all secrets. So silence is important in other ways, like in the military. If they have a submarine, they have a motto, run silent, run deep. Because if you make noises, it gives away your position to the enemy, who are there just waiting to hear some sound that there's passive sound reception, and also they have something called sonar, where they send out sound waves through the water, and if they hit an object, they bounce back and give a signal that yes, some object is there, and then they can locate it and train their weapons, their depth charges on it, and it's like that. They give away their position. Sometimes you see a movie like that. The sailors are all in the submarine and they're listening. The depth charges are bursting around them. So in the same way, we have to remain silent in terms of not speaking nonsense. Srila Prabhupada is making the point here in this purport that one doesn't want to be silent like a stone. Stone is silent, but that's just a feature of the mode of ignorance in a very intense form. Kṛṣṇa says, in addition to being silent in terms of not vibrating nonsensical sound vibration, one also on the positive side has to be always speaking or vibrating transcendental sound vibration, sadadam kirtayanto mam. Always, the devotees are always chanting about the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Kṛṣṇa, by chanting his names, reciting his teachings in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, chanting prayers to him. So we're munis and we're practicing a vow of maunam, and that we're vowing to use our speaking ability and music making ability in the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Kirtaniya Sadahari. So, and the opposite can be very dangerous, just like I was saying, the submarine. So, Srila Prabhupada is given the example, it's there in the Srimad Bhagavatam also, about the frogs. At night they're croaking. If you've been somewhere where there's frogs, you hear them, ribbit, 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 and they're just calling the snake. The snake is listening. Hears that sound vibration, he knows there's a snack, there's dinner. So if we're vibrating the wrong kind of sound vibration, we're exposing ourselves to danger. Just like the sailors in the submarine have to be silent. The frog is going to get in trouble by its loud croaking at night. It's simply attracting the snake. So if we want to achieve the goal of life, what is it described here? This is one of the principles, to be silent in terms of the kind of sound vibration that we emanate. And then other principles are also mentioned here, especially for those who are practicing the varnashram, type of varnashram system in the ages where it was the main form of civilization. He's near Agnir and Aniketanaḥ. So it's like one name of Kṛṣṇa, I think, is Sriniketana, the abode of the goddess of fortune. So Niketana means residence. So he was without residence, although he seemed to always have been quite austere, Kardama Muni, living the life of a sage, but when required, he manifested a beautiful residence for himself and his wife. Now he's entering another phase of life. So I'll stop there. Any questions or comments, Brigapati?
Thank you, Prabhu. Nice class, as usual. My question is this: in the purport, Prabhupada gives Maharaj Ambrish as a very good example of somebody who is remaining grave and silent because he didn't talk nonsense. He only spoke about the pastimes of the Lord. I get the impression, I could be wrong, that the silence that Kardama Muni was observing was complete physical silence. Once again, I could be wrong. It's just an impression because it's not directly stated here, and I don't know if it's stated elsewhere. But he was following a different system of yoga. I mean, he's definitely a devotee, but didn't he achieve the position of being a devotee by performing the Ashtanga yoga system? I mean, there's no description of Kardama Muni doing Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam. So is this an example of Prabhupada translating one yoga system into another? In other words, like Kardama Muni was like basically an Ashtanga yogi who achieved the goal of Ashtanga yoga, which is Kṛṣṇa realization or Kṛṣṇa bhakti, but and Prabhupada's kind of giving us how we could do that. You know, he's translating the Ashtanga yoga system into the bhakti yoga, how it relates, and that's why he's giving Maharaj Ambrish as an example of silence. He wasn't really physically silent. I mean, he might have been, existentially silent because he was only talking about Kṛṣṇa. But once again, I get the feeling that Kardama Muni was actually physically silent as well as, existentially silent.
Well, I really don't know the answer to that. I'm kind of guided by what Srila Prabhupada says in the purport, and he kind of presents silence in a certain way. And how it relates to what Kardama Muni, what kind of silence he was practicing, I really can't say from a direct statement. Arshita?
Yes, this is the next purport. The very next purport says, he achieved it through bhakti. And how? By fixing his mind on the Supreme Lord. So this fixing the mind on the Supreme Lord, that is bhakti. He could not have achieved it just by Ashtanga. Prabhupada gives in the very next purport, he says, he achieved it by fixing his mind on the Lord, and that is bhakti.
So, it seems to me like he achieved bhakti through the Ashtanga yoga system. He wasn't like a, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu personality. He performed the Ashtanga yoga, and he. Yeah, no, I'm not saying. I'm not arguing the point. But he was. He came through the. Earlier on we hear he's meditating. He's sitting. He's not chanting Hare Krishna. He's performing Ashtanga yoga, and he achieved bhakti yoga as a result of performing Ashtanga yoga. that yoga culminates in. I mean, I could be wrong. This is my impression, so I'm kind of airing it to get some clarification here. It seems to me he was like an Ashtanga yogi who achieved the goal of Ashtanga yoga, which is bhakti. But if I'm wrong, tell me. I don't know.
Well, I think maybe the coming verses will clarify things. Okay, so we can stop there. Hare Krishna.